Freedom fighter Vernon Moodley has been reburied at Tambo Cemetery, Tamboville in Wattville. Moodley, one of 42 freedom fighters who died in Zambia and Zimbabwe during the liberation struggle, was a member of the Umkhonto weSizwe Luthuli Detachment, and his remains returned to South Africa back in September. Moodley had left South Africa in 1962 to join Umkhonto weSizwe. SABC News reporter Mbalenhle Mthethwa joins me in studio to further unpack this. Mbalenhle, a very good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for joining us. So another struggle icon has been returned home and reburied. Let's go back in time and get to know the struggle icon that is called Vernon Moodley. Who is he? How did he assist South Africa in the fight for liberation?
Well, his mother was an activist herself, and she is affectionately called Auntie Mary. And because she was an activist, and Vernon was not the only child that she had that she allowed to go and fight in the Liberation Arms movement or the Liberation Army that was formed at the time called Umkhonto weSizwe. He was 16 years old when he joined Umkhonto weSizwe, very tender age,
young.
giving up his youth, giving up all the potential that he could have lived up to. He could have been a lawyer, he could have been a doctor, he could have been anything else, but he chose to lay down his life for the liberation of South Africa, frustrated at the time by the apartheid regime, which, you know, meant that many people had lived, or many people of color lived under very unfavorable conditions, where they were constantly being harassed by the police. And obviously this led to, you know, them taking a stance. And it's also quite interesting that, you know, Auntie Mary Moodley did not only send Vernon over to fight, there were other children that she sent through. And I mean, this just speaks to how strongly she believed in the liberation movement and the liberation of South Africans, and the fact that, you know, South Africans needed to lead a better life. And today his remains were brought back to South Africa over 60 years after his passing. And, you know, it is quite interesting. I think it is both a bittersweet moment for the family, the fact that he died shortly after leaving, and, you know, the conditions that he didn't really die under very extreme or extremely bad conditions. They were just celebrating the fact that the pond had filled up after a rain, and he happened to jump in as a child, obviously, because he was a child at the time, and unfortunately he did not resurface.
Mbalenhle, now his remains being repatriated recently as part of the campaign by the Department of Military Veterans. How are these burials then conducted? You just spoke about the family who's having a bittersweet moment in having to now deal with a loved one who died in another country, was buried in another country after so many years. You have to unearth that pain and relive it.
You know, the family has taken it with so much grace. The family says they have no regrets. His nephew spoke at the funeral saying that he is the third generation of activists, and he continues as an activist, and he's very proud and happy to have been associated with the late struggle stalwart. And the fact that, you know, his family continues in the struggle, and they played such a huge role in the liberation of South Africa. So it's very it's quite admirable is the word that I'm looking for, that a family would say that they are pleased and that they have no regrets over the death, and having sent,
sacrificed
one of their own, and not only just one but many of their own, to go there. And they all of this is all for the liberation movement, but unhappiness from military veterans who feel that the Liberation Army's name is being abused for political gain in order to secure votes, and also for personal gain. And they're calling on the ANC to do something to protect the name and the integrity of that movement, given that people went and died, and do not believe that the movement should be used to then get for personal gain, or even political gain, or even for votes, or to fight whatever factional battles that exist or have existed in the past within the ANC. So there's also that call. We spoke to the Gauteng Secretary General Thembinkosi TK Ngciza, who was there, and he said that the national government is doing something to protect the integrity of the name, but he's also said that the ANC is able to rebuild itself, and it has rebuilt itself under the most difficult circumstances. And he said that, like Vernon sacrificed his youth, and he wouldn't be able to send his own child to go and fight in a liberation army. And he commended that Auntie Mary could be able to do that. However, he asked his comrades and his colleagues in the ANC, what are they willing to sacrifice? And he called on his comrades and colleagues in the ANC to sacrifice factionalism, to sacrifice all the things that have been done in the past in order to rebuild the organization and really just
emulate the ethics of the past leaders. Absolutely. Like Vernon Moodley.
Absolutely. The veterans who came to speak were talking about the fact that they did not join the ANC for political positions, political power, for monetary gain, as you say, for tenders, whatever, you name it. And they said that, they've seen that in the past, people have left the ANC to form their own political parties because they were not able to secure votes, or rather positions, and they were not able to secure tenders at municipal level, or you name it. And they are calling on the ANC, or people who want to join the ANC, to join the ANC because they want to be a part of change and not for personal gain or monetary gain at all. And they are just calling on everyone to mimic the behavior, or rather the conduct of those who came before them.
The leadership qualities was on another level. A very quick one, buddy. I know we're out of time. I'm probably going to get shouted at very quickly. We know there are still other families that are hoping that their loved ones who also perished in similar situations in other countries are hoping for their loved ones to also be returned to them. Defense Minister, I'm hearing here, Angie Motshekga, says the government has planned to repatriate more remains of freedom fighters that died in exile. What can you quickly tell us about that?
Well, certainly the fight for that continues, and rather the work around that continues. And we had one of the commanders who was also there during the struggle, and he was also one of the members of the Liberation Army, and he is the one who's actually going out, very passionate too, so a person too. He's going out and going out to all these places to find all these people, and obviously this is a passion project for the Liberation Army called Umkhonto weSizwe within the ANC.
Thank you so much, Mbalenhle, for your input this afternoon. That is Mbalenhle Mthethwa, SABC News reporter, in studio with me on the reburial of struggle icon Vernon Moodley.